Welcome back to the Happiest Sad Person podcast. I'm Alessandra, your negligent host. My intros kind of remind me of, I don't know if you've ever seen or listened to Conan O'Brien's podcast, but he at the beginning has his guests say an adjective about how they feel about being his friend. So it'll be something like, my name is da 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 da, and I feel anxious about being Conan's friend. And I feel like I don't know why I feel like I have to do that every podcast where I have to sort of say where I've been or why I've been negligent or give like a qualifier. I don't know where that comes from, but maybe I'll change it, maybe I won't. My classic indecision, uncertainty, all of the above. I'm recording a little audio up today. I'm hoping that I have higher quality audio but no video. A, because I feel like trash. And B, because I'm still working with the dumbest camera purchase under the sun. So we shall see. But oh boy, have things taken a turn. I've been away. I don't remember if I mentioned this before, but I kind of inadvertently lost my job. And you may say, but Alessandra, you are self-employed. Well, yes, technically, but I had foregone a lot of my freelance writing work for a contract editing position that turned into teaching, that then turned into tutoring, which then turned into a book club, which I hated. And I always seem to get into this problem where I agree to something and then it morphs and changes because my job description was never specific. And then it all falls apart. And this was a long time coming. Like I said, I was really, I think I've mentioned it, unhappy doing it. I don't like teaching. I just, call me selfish, but I want my effort in my life to go toward me. I want to better myself. I want to be the one that's learning. It just feels kind of hollow. I'm sure there are greater people than I that really feel like they can set aside their ambitions for them and teach the next people, but I am not one of them. I just don't like it. And so I ended up quitting teaching the book club, and I had a feeling, because I never got an email back from them, after I sent this very nice, thoughtful email just saying, thank you, it's not for me. And a lot of my reasons for not wanting to do it anymore was that I was getting censored with what books I could choose. And this was for high school level students. And so every corner I turned, there would be an issue with the books that I was choosing. And I was reading way more advanced stuff in like fifth grade sometimes. And so it just felt very bizarre to me that they wouldn't want their students to be exposed to like higher level thinking. Like one of the books was The Handmaid's Tale, and it was deemed too explicit. And so that was challenging, and I just felt really stifled, and I felt just really, I don't know, it took me back to when I was a kid, where if someone had limited the books that I read, I couldn't imagine being the person that I am today. Books and reading even the unsavory stuff is such a part of who I am. And just because someone's exposed to something that's beyond their level, it doesn't mean they're going to engage in those behaviors or suddenly have a changed worldview or anything like that. It just means they're going to see a different part of the world. And people see way worse stuff on social media. And so I quit the book club. The email was never responded to, but I never heard anything back, and I was still getting other tutoring assignments. So I was like, oh, she must have gotten the email, and she did. And then my other jobs started dwindling. I wasn't getting any more essays to edit. I wasn't getting any more tutoring jobs. Some of the kids I was tutoring weren't getting back to me. And that's when I realized, and especially after talking to like 50 million people in my life, that I wasn't crazy and that I was being vindictively, slowly fired, like a frog being boiled, slowly over time in increments, until all of a sudden they are dead, and they may have one sudden realization that the end has come all too soon. So that was my frog boiling moment, and that was devastating because I was not planning on losing my job. And the other thing is, I wasn't even fired. I wasn't let go. I didn't quit. Well, technically I sent an email just saying, well, I lied and said I had a new job that would require travel, but it wasn't worth me engaging and saying, why aren't you giving me hours? What's wrong? Because they didn't even give me that respect. And I didn't even get an email back after I sent my resignation. So if that tells you anything, of how little they thought of me. And I really worked hard. I really put in effort for these book clubs and tutoring sessions, and it says something when even the student I tutored sent sent an email, and a more thoughtful, kind email thanking me for what I had taught her when it came to poetry, and was grateful, and it was just really nice. I had 2 students that sent really kind, thoughtful emails. And so that was disappointing to not have any finality, but I got some of it by sending in my technical resignation, because you can't live on only a few hours of work a week. Not even. Like, it was dwindling to basically nothing. And the timing made sense. It was kind of obvious what had happened. So here I am. Currently in search of a new job, more writing assignments, pivoting industries. I've gone on 2 bartending jobs while having no bartending nor serving experience. So this has been humbling. I had a sales job through a friend that I thought was my job to reject. And humbly, it turned out that it instead went through traditional HR. It wasn't really a help up anyway. And I was summarily rejected for not having the credentials for it, which I knew I never had in the first place. And that's why I thought I was going through a friend to talk to the person in person and have an interview and skip a few steps. Because that's usually, I don't know, kind of how that happens if you know someone who already works at the company and has worked there for years and years and years and is one of the top salespeople. But who am I? Who am I to think that a contact would actually get me maybe an interview, skip a step rather than the traditional HR process? So that was demoralizing. And I did get an email back, and it was kind of a passive-aggressive email. You guys can tell me if this is rude or not, but it was basically like, we know we owe you a response, and basically out of the kindness of our hearts, we're going to give you one. You are trash and don't have enough experience, so We don't want you. I brutalized it a bit, but essentially it came off, it was very weird wording for the email. And there's something so humbling about being rejected from a job that you thought you were going to say no to. It's like, I'm not even good for the thing I wanted to say no to the thing I wanted to reject. I get rejected from the reject. It just felt like such garbage. And it really is a full-time job keeping up your spirits when you had such a sudden shift of plans and life and change. And I'm trying not to do what I usually do, which is allow situational depression to morph into true depression and kind of freeze. So it may seem counterintuitive, but I am working out like crazy, organizing, decluttering, keeping myself busy, reading a lot. Anything that makes me feel productive and kind of tethers me from one moment to the next and keeps me like in the game, if you will, is the goal for staving off that kind of looming depression that becomes existential or becomes treatment resistant when situational depression lingers for a while. And I'm used to kind of this cycle of kind of everything falling apart, everything falling away. And I probably sound fed up, and it's because I am. I'm very much over it. I feel very trapped and stuck, and I feel like I have nothing to show for my name. I feel like even when I was reading my resume and thinking about who I am as a person and what, especially when I was writing my query letter for my book, I don't have any accomplishments, really, anything major. And there's something embarrassing about that. But also, a lot of the work that I've been doing has been internal. I don't have a lot of tangible things that I can show for. And it hurts. And it makes me realize I have so much more to offer to the outside world and so much more to do. But my brain can't even get there at this moment because I need to find a new way to have income so that I can continue to do my creative work, which is the stuff I care about, getting my book published. And not having a job right now is really not the ideal time, in the fact that my book is now finished and now I'm looking for a literary agent. And if I don't get a literary agent, I self-publish, and all of that will be on my shoulders financially. So I just really was not banking on this being my reality right now. But I really do have to think that sometimes everything has to fall apart for me to learn a lesson or be where I need to be or take a chance or switch things up to follow a different path. I would like to be able to make a little bit more, have a few more resume mile markers and like things published and have a few more tangible, eggs in my basket, every time things fall apart, so that I have a few things to hold on to and I don't have to restart every time. But I know that that's coming. It's just everything for me has to be a brutal, brutal learning experience. And it sucks. There's no other way around it. And I know I'm a lot better off than most people. And I know I'm very lucky. And I now have, everyone in my life now is so good and kind. And I've cleared out all the bad people. And my family's great. And I don't need a lot of money to survive right now because I live very much like below my means in a lot of ways, the life of a starving artist. So I'm grateful that I don't have responsibilities and like a sense of like entire panic where I'm going to be homeless like next month. That's not the case at all. And so there is a sense of gratitude. And they say that when you have things that are negative that happen to you, and you're like, if you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the little pyramid, if you have your basic needs met and you go through struggle and strife, you can learn from these negative experiences because you're in a level of safety. So you actually can benefit from it. And so that's what I need to keep reminding myself. And that's another thing right now is the goal is constantly being present, forcing myself to be positive and think positively and believe in myself and believe that everything is going to be okay. I've been listening to some Eckhart Tolle, sort of like a book that's a compilation of an event that he hosted. And let me look up the name of the book. I use my trusty library app, Libby, which I highly recommend. And it's Eckhart Tolle's The Art of Presence. And it's a really good audiobook. His accent can be a little tough to understand, but he had this part where it was him talking about the concept of, getting wood and carrying water. In the olden days, to, cook or do anything, you need those were two things you needed to make a fire and boil water. And we really don't need to do that anymore. And very few people live like that. And so it's also a metaphor for being in the moment, being present. And so I've really been trying to collect wood, carry water in my life, in just being in the moment, being present, doing a task, really participating in it. And it has been working, I will say. I'm also back into Transcendental Meditation. It isn't as gratifying initially as like guided meditation where you choose a topic, but I can feel like a little bit of that muscle building of me being able to focus on the mantra more, and really it feels more like hard work, whereas guided meditations feel like kind of like a salve for whatever you're feeling in the moment, kind of like a salve for your soul. It makes you feel better, and it kind of is like cushy, whereas transcendental meditation with the mantra feels a little bit more like weightlifting. It feels like hard work. It's not feel good per se. At least I don't feel that way. Don't get me wrong. When I finish the meditation itself, I feel better. I feel like I did something good for me, and I like that feeling of accomplishment. But yeah, every now and again I come back to TM, and I have never gone through formal training. I would like to, maybe this summer. I think the area, it might be the same everywhere, but near me it says it's like a 3-day seminar. So I think that would be interesting. And then I've also been actually lifting weights to kind of get out my rage, and when I feel like stuck like this and have to restart, usually my overarching feeling is rage, anger, because that's usually my general feeling anyway, is like all my emotions used to be translated through anger. So that still comes up. I also have a bad temper. So yeah, weightlifting I've been watching so many videos about it, and so I was like, you know what, I actually just need to try this. Because I can watch 1,010 videos, but if I don't actually do it, what's the point? And I've just heard so many good things about how it makes you feel and losing weight and toning up. And I am someone who has basically all my strength in my legs. My arms are noodles, my core is a noodle. I don't really have I have like brute strength. Like if I got into a fight in an alley, I would bring out like my like crazy fury, anger, brute strength, like white knuckling through. But I want to have like real, genuine, slow, calisthenics strength. And I want people to also do a pull-up. I've watched a million of these videos where people do pull-ups, and I feel like that would be just a good accomplishment. I can do one of those like resistance band assisted pull-ups, but I mean, I think anyone can do those, so I that doesn't count. And push-ups. I've always wanted to be able to do push-ups, and I've never really had the arm strength. Maybe when I was really into playing basketball and I was on a few teams, I probably had the arm strength to do it then, but I really don't think I ever tried. So those are kind of like fun goals to work on, and it's going to take time because I am entirely a beginner, which is ironic because I've been doing sports, exercising, running so much of my life. I just never was exposed to weightlifting, and I was too impatient to do it. There's something about, I don't know, because it's funny I say that because I can long run and I love running distance and I love endurance. So I don't know why I'm too impatient to do like a full range of motion squat or bicep curl or what. I don't know why that's such an issue for me. So that's going to be something else I'm working on. And then May is just going to be, because I'm not working really, it's going to be like a challenge myself month. It's going to be 20K steps a day. It's going to be lifting weights, really eating meal prepped clean. Really, honestly, also to fill my day with stuff. Because I have to use this time to my advantage. I have to benefit from this experience while I look for something new. And if I let this more time pass me by, it's just really going to be sad, and I don't want to lose any more time. And so continuing on at the moment, just trying new things. I'm also reading Salman Rushdie's book that gave him the fatwa from, I believe, the Ayatollah of Iran. And I'd heard a bunch of things about the book. And I'm embarrassed to say, I even thought, before researching it a bit more initially, I thought it was a nonfiction book about Islam. And when I realized it's a fiction book, it seems so. I've only read the first chapter. It's like a story within a story, and the writing is so beautiful. And I just can't believe that this, kind of going back to the idea of books, that this book would be an issue or a problem. It kind of breaks my heart, I'm going to be honest. And I wish people would just be more chill with allowing people to read things that challenge their ideas, and if one book can unravel your whole thought process, that means your thought process or your dogma or doctrine isn't as strong as you would think. I mean, that's sort of what I would assume. And so kind of going along the concept of books, banned books, reading in general, especially when it comes to younger people, I'm going to read an excerpt that I actually just added to my book. Sort of about the importance of books and allowing kids to read from a young age, but especially during like pivotal high school years. Here's the book excerpt. Ah, I found it. A book relegated all the way in the back, on some shelf that no one would ever peruse. I found the book initially by accident, after realizing there must be a reason the shelf is so out of the way. Often the most hidden books have the best gems of wisdom in them. There's a reason all of the most backwards of people fear books. Burn them, ban them, they say. It's a tale as old as time. Knowledge is power. The written word can bind you to an ideology, or it can set you free. One string comes undone, and bam! You realize the notions you've been raised on were just one idea in a sea of many. That humans with our big brains have the luxury of finding their own meaning in a world that implicitly has none. You can either lose your mind with absurdism or nihilism, or lean into it, accept it, become a religious zealot's worst nightmare, an existentialist. I mean, haven't you read The Scarlet Letter? There's nothing more dangerous than a human who decides what life means to them. I pull the book from the shelf. Annie on my mind. It's written by an unfamiliar author, a woman named Nancy Garden. I remember the first time I borrowed it before perusing it. I brought the book to the resource desk along with a few others, The Stranger by Camus and a classic in Brave New World, as well as 2 modern recommendations I found on the book forum I check up on. It's kind of a funny story, and apparently a controversial read in Running with Scissors. Both recommendations came with the tag, "Please read if anyone has told you that you're unwell." In quotes, naturally. Of course I took the bait. The librarian gets to the bottom of the stack and scans. Title after title. She gives me a disapproving stare. That means that the book must be good. I take it from her hands and devour the books that night at home. When I cracked open the spine of Annie on my mind, I saw why I wasn't supposed to read this book. It was about 2 girls falling in love, a Shakespearean tale, except Romeo was replaced with Roma. A forbidden tale of forbidden love. That night I read to the sound of rain on my windows. Tears fell down my cheeks and bubbled atop the pages, distorting the words. I was reading to escape. Escape the boozy breath of my mother, her cornering me while I went down the stairs to tell me how much I've disappointed her. For what? I don't know. My father cut the end of it as he came through the front door and shrugged. Becca barged into my room to take a sweater and to remind me that Mom said she's disappointed in you. I don't know why, but she just wanted me to tell you. As she bounces out of the room with a stack of my clothes that will come back smelling like booze and with cigarette burn holes. I was already crying when I stumbled upon this paragraph. I stopped walking, the thought crashing in on me more than I'd ever let it before. You're in love with another girl, Liza Winthrop, and you know that means you're probably gay, but you don't know a thing about what that means. I went downstairs to Dad's encyclopedia and looked up homosexuality, but that didn't tell me much about any of the things I felt. What struck me most, though, was that in the whole long article, the word love wasn't even used once. That made me mad. It was as if whoever wrote the article didn't know that gay people actually loved each other. The encyclopedia writers ought to talk to me, I thought as I went to bed. I could tell them something about love. Books always make me cry. When a chapter touches on an exposed nerve I have not yet healed of mine, I get to feel less lonely in the world. It makes me realize that someone else has had the same things happen, that we're all seeking, we're all experiencing profound loss and emptiness and heartache, and they translate those feelings so much better than I ever could. It broke my heart that love is kept behind a paywall. It broke my heart that love is kept behind a paywall, behind a curtain. A human right, but only for a few. The righteous, the holy, Puritanica at its finest. It's the pious folk who get to decide who gets deprived of that thing that makes us human. Love, that cliched 4-letter word. I haven't received it yet, but that's because I'm missing the components, the necessary mechanisms. Briar will miss it because she has too many moving parts. She has evolved beyond the binary. Love now has become something to withhold. That's what our modern world has done to us apes. We've evolved to torture each other's daily private lives based on a book written and translated by a bunch of dudes. All this brain power, and yet we still operate in the Stone Age, a supercomputer with one tiny monitor. So, that's a little excerpt about the narrator Quinn talking about her friend who's gay and how it just is so disappointing to her that because she's gay and religious, she's kind of ostracized. And I think that's a reality that a lot of religious kids experience. And it's unfortunate. And it's also unfortunate that books can't be used as a universal tool and sort of a way to have kids that maybe don't belong feel less lonely. Because that was certainly the case for me when I was reading. You know, sometimes books would be my only friends. Books, the characters were my role models. They taught me things that no one around me taught me. And if I didn't have that, I don't know if I'd be here today. And I wish people realized that it's okay to provide people with alternative information, that there's nothing wrong with questioning things or believing something different than those around you. We don't all need to be a monolith. What a boring world that would be. So I will leave you at that. Leave this place better than you found it, and feel free to follow at the Happiest Sad Person podcast on Instagram. My personal Instagram, which is linked at that podcast in that bio as well. Yeah, and thank you all for listening, and thanks for being so patient with me, and yeah, being alive at this junction of time where we're all existing in the same time and space so that I can jabber and you can listen. I appreciate it more than you know. All right. Bye, guys.